I'd like to take a moment to talk about an event I recently attended. It's called Evolved 2023. It was a retreat by Anton Wisbiski, a person who, up until only a few months ago, I was not aware of, even though he's worked under people I followed for a number of years, like nearly 20 years, like Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith and Joe Dispenza. And I attended one of his summits a couple months ago, a virtual summit, and I was so impressed with the value that I got out of it, the effort that Anton had put into this summit, that I said somehow I've got to figure out a way to get the time in and attend his physical retreat. That was just last week, and evolved is an understatement for how I feel after attending this. I have so much more energy, I have so much more clarity, and it all started with one of the things he had said. I got to look at my notes here, but it was, he mentioned shifting the identity of who we think we are. And that doesn't mean changing who we are. It literally means what he's saying there, shifting our thoughts. He went into initially a lot about the conscious and unconscious brain and how these filters develop in our subconscious. And they create limiting beliefs of what's possible. But I had gone there not really knowing for sure what he was going to address, but knowing what I needed to develop, what I had been trying to work on for some time now. And it was like I was divinely guided. It was exactly, he discussed exactly the areas that I wanted to focus on. And that is, in the second and third days, he covered masculine and feminine energy, which exists in both men and women. And then the four primary archetypes of humankind that you have: the warrior, the magician, the lover, the king or the queen. And all of it are things, like I said, I needed to work on, but I didn't have the clarity. I didn't see how I could truly get there and feel comfortable in what I was lacking. And I understood to a certain degree what was blocking me, but the breakthroughs that I had continually through this program were incredible, and I wasn't the only one. I mean, Anton will hopefully be writing books on this stuff, but attending it in person, going through the exercises, listening to everything he had to say and applying it, and everything he did to ingrain this into us so that we wouldn't fall back into our old habits was terrific. And I have to say, it's only been a week, but I've lost count how many times I've noticed I'm doing things differently, where I'm not falling into an old habit, where I'm spending less time worrying about what people will think in my actions, because I should know that they should understand my intentions based on my energy, based on who I am. And to back up a little bit and explain why I was in that mindset, as Anton addressed it, over the years we've kind of been moving towards this idea of men and women should kind of come into the same similar role across the board between the masculine and feminine, and the unnatural challenge that is for men and women. And there's been so many examples of toxic masculinity that it's caused a lot of people like myself, a lot of men like myself, to, in my case, I overcompensated. And this goes back to many years ago in college. I had in my home healthy examples of masculine energy. My father and my uncle. My uncle was my father to me when I couldn't be with my father. And they were great. But in my teenage years and then in my college years, I went to a university that was 10 to 1 men to women. And you can imagine what kind of dynamic that creates when there's that many men and there aren't enough women. When they're trying to find someone, have a relationship, it leads to wounded masculine energy. It leads to some very toxic situations. And even in relationships that I did have, I was almost always finding that the women that I had dated, they had some experience in the past where a man had either sexually, mentally, or physically abused them. So all these examples, these poor examples, made me say, I don't want to be that guy. And I want to do everything I can to prove I'm not that. And then even in other interpersonal relationships, work environment, whatever it may be, I was always doing the same thing, being so concerned about how people perceived me to an overly cautious amount. The exercises we went through, the explanations of everything, I mean, not only did it confirm it, the biggest confirmation was the women saying and confirming, yes, we don't feel safe being in our feminine energy when men aren't in their masculine energy. We could bring that masculine energy anytime we want to. We know how to do it, but we don't prefer doing that. So to sum this up, the best way I could describe it, as I said, I had already been working on, for many years, self-improvement. But in the most recent months, specific things that I knew had to change. I had heard it through my ex-wife. She identified these things and tried to help me to understand when I was overthinking and all that. Anton gave me the clarity. Even though I was finally vibrating at this higher frequency, it was like you have a guitar, it's in tune and everything sounds great, but Anton was that amp with overdrive to take me to that level where I could just sonically resonate at a much greater level with much greater ease. And I recommend the program to everyone. It certainly seemed like everyone who attended absolutely loved it and got so much out of it. And I thank Anton and his team. I'm forever grateful. Thank you.